Cosmic irony tasted like expensive synthetic coffee and the barely masked terror of 17 alien diplomats. At least, that's how it tasted today, in the gleaming central chamber of the Galactic Concord's headquarters, where history was about to be rewritten by the most unlikely of creatures. "Attention, representatives," announced the automated translation system as it struggled to find appropriate emotional inflections. "The 97th Annual Security Council will commence in 3 standard minutes." The Thalaxian delegate's gelatinous form quivered with what might have been anticipation or indigestion, difficult to tell with species composed primarily of semi-sentient protoplasm. "I move we alter the agenda to address the situation with the Kreshari Dominion immediately." "Seconded," rasped Ambassador Scholl of the Vosk Imperium, the light glinting off his ceremonial blade ridges. "Let us not pretend we've gathered to discuss trade routes when a predator species has just upended 8 centuries of diplomatic protocol." The assembled delegates murmured agreement, their anxiety palpable enough to register on empathic sensors. It wasn't every day that the most feared warrior race in the known universe announced a leadership change. It wasn't any day that said leadership wasn't even from their species. The Kreshari weren't simply dangerous, they were danger personified, evolutionary perfection with extra teeth. Standing 8 feet tall with dual-layered musculature, triple-hinged jaws lined with regenerating teeth, and claws that could shred tritanium, they were the species that made other apex predators check under their sleeping platforms at night. Their homeworld made death worlds look like luxury resorts, and their cultural exhibitions typically involved demonstrations of how quickly they could disembowel holographic representations of now extinct rival species, which made what happened next all the more surreal. The main doors parted with a ceremonial hiss. 3 Kreshari warriors entered, their massive grains making the grand chamber suddenly feel cramped. Their scaled hides bore the ritual scarification that denoted high military rank, iridescent in the artificial light. The lead warrior, General Kevix, according to diplomatic records, carried a ceremonial staff fashioned from what appeared to be the vertebrae of some enormous creature, and trailing behind them, looking for all the galaxy like a lost tourist who'd accidentally wandered onto the wrong transport, was a human. "You have got to be joking," muttered the Arcturan's representative, their crystalline form vibrating with disbelief. The human couldn't have been more than 25 standard years old, dressed in what appeared to be a hastily modified Kreshari ceremonial vest that hung like a tent over an ordinary jumpsuit. No impressive height, no visible weaponry, no biological adaptations of note, just 5+ feet of cosmically unremarkable primate, with an expression that mixed bewilderment and barely concealed amusement. "Hey, everyone," the human said, raising a hand in casual greeting as they climbed onto the oversized Kreshari delegation chair. "Sorry if we're late. There was a thing with the shuttle, and then another thing with some ceremonial pre-meeting hunting ritual I kind of vetoed, and then a whole other thing about whether I should wear shoes in here." They held up a foot, displaying what appeared to be standard-issue exploration boot. "I voted yes on shoes, as you can see." 17 species worth of diplomats stared in. General Quebec stepped forward, his voice a rumbling growl that the translation system struggled to modulate. "The Kreshari Dominion presents its new alpha of alphas, the survivor, the pack bonder, our chosen one." The human gave an awkward wave. "Hi again. You can just call me—" "They require no name," interrupted Kavix. "Their actions have earned them the highest designation. Where they lead, we follow. Their wisdom guides the Dominion now." The Vosk ambassador recovered first, reptilian composure reasserting itself. "This is absurd. The Kreshari selection process has always involved ritual combat to the death among your greatest warriors. Are we to believe this mammal defeated your champions? The human snorted. God, no. They'd snap me like a twig in actual combat. It was more of a misunderstanding that worked out in everyone's favor. Ain, demanded the Arcturus representative. Well, the human began, settling more comfortably into the massive chair. I was part of an interplanetary exchange program. You know, fostering cosmic understanding and all that diplomatic jazz. My group was touring the Kreshari Cultural Center on Proxima Centauri 4. General Kaifex interjected. The human wandered into the path of ascension. None but Kreshari warriors enter this sacred space. I was looking for a bathroom, the human clarified. Signage was not their priority in facility design. In 8 centuries, no non-Kreshari has survived the path, Kavex continued. Yet this one employed unprecedented survival tactics. The human shrugged. I had a backpack full of snacks and a really good hiding spot. Plus, it turns out my natural scent registers as unappetizing on their sensory spectrum. Small blessings, right? The Talaxian delegate's translation orb glowed with intensity. But how did this lead to leadership? That's where it gets weird, the human admitted. On day 3 of my impromptu survival vacation, I got cornered by a hunting party. I figured I was done for, so I did what humans do in hopeless situations. I tried to make friends. The human-initiated pack-bonding behaviors, Kavex explained, with what might have been reverence in his growling voice. Offered food, attempted communication, displayed vulnerability, yet showed no fear. I was terrified, corrected the human. But my grandparent always said, if you're going to die, might as well do it while sharing a sandwich. The gathered representatives exchanged glances of confusion and growing alarm. The most feared warriors in the galaxy had been swayed by sandwich diplomacy? The Arcturus representative's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. This cannot stand. The power balance of 16 star systems relies on predictable behavior patterns from the Kreshari Dominion. About that, the human said, suddenly shifting to a more serious tone. Nothing's really changed, except now the Kreshari are interested in options beyond hunt and intimidate. They're still the same terrifying force they've always been. They just have new perspectives. General Kavex bared his triple rows of teeth in what the translation system identified as a gesture of pride. The human understands weakness as strength, shows mercy as power. These concepts were unknown to us. We follow their wisdom. Let me get this straight, the Vosk ambassador said slowly. The most aggressive species in charted space is now taking philosophical guidance from a species that evolved as prey animals on a relatively benign world? The human grinned. Ironic, isn't it? But that's evolution for you. Turns out surviving as a prey species requires different skills than being at the top of the food chain. Skills the Kreshari find fascinating. Such as, prompted the Thalaxian, cooperation, empathy, cost-benefit analysis, the concept of winning without fighting. Really wild stuff if your entire civilization is built around the idea that strength is all that matters. The implications rippled through the chamber like a gravitational wave. A human leading the Kreshari. A prey species guiding predators. The delicate balance of galactic politics tilted on an axis no one had foreseen. I assure you, the human continued, correctly reading the room, this isn't some elaborate scheme for human dominance. Honestly, most humans don't even know this has happened yet. I haven't even told my parents. They paused. Actually, I should probably call them soon. They think I'm still on my exchange program. The Arcturus representative vibrated at a frequency that indicated extreme skepticism. And what exactly are your intentions as the new leader of the Kreshari Dominion? The human shrugged again, the gesture almost comically casual in the formal setting. Short term? Cultural exchange, diplomatic relations, maybe introducing the concept of movies and sports as alternatives to ritual combat for entertainment. Long term? Who knows? I'm kind of making this up as I go. That last admission sent another wave of concerned murmurs through the assembly. General Kavek stepped forward, imposing silence with his presence alone. The Alpha Rathavas has spoken. The Kreshari Dominion awaits your response to our new direction. The human pulled something from a pocket and unwrapped it with ceremonial deliberation. Anyone want a protein bar? No? Just me then. They took a bite, chewing thoughtfully while 17 of the galaxy's most powerful beings contemplated a future that suddenly seemed vastly more unpredictable. The cosmos, it seemed, had quite the sense of humour after all. But nobody in the Galactic Concord was laughing. 3 standard months after the most awkward diplomatic introduction in recorded galactic history, the Kreshari embassy on Centauri Prime received its first ever renovation. The traditionally Spartan fortress, all sharp angles and intimidating spires designed to evoke the ancestral hunting grounds of the Kreshari homeworld, now sported a garden terrace and what appeared to be a basketball court. "Is that a cappuccino machine?" whispered diplomatic attaché Vreen to her superior as they approached the formerly forbidding entrance, now adorned with potted plants. Ambassador Loritz of the Terran Coalition adjusted his formal collar nervously. "Focus, attaché. We're here to assess the situation, not critique their interior design choices." The truth was, nobody quite knew what to make of the changes rippling through Kreshari territory. Trade routes previously avoided due to Kreshari aggression now reported safe passage. Mining colonies that had paid protection fees for centuries suddenly received invitations to neighborly beneficial extraction rights. Most disturbing of all, the Kreshari battle fleet, the most feared armada in 3 quadrants, had been sighted, conducting what observers could only describe as practice maneuvers, rather than their usual intimidation patrols. A Kreshari warrior met them at the entrance, ceremonial battle armor now supplemented with what appeared to be a communication device resembling an earpiece. "The Alpha of Alphas awaits. You may bring your recording devices, but no weapons." The warrior paused, mandibles clicking in what translated as amusement, though against us the distinction is largely ceremonial. Ambassador Loritz had prepared extensively for this meeting, studying everything known about traditional Kreshari diplomatic protocols, which amounted to little more than variations on displays of dominance. Nothing had prepared him for the scene that greeted them in the central chamber. The human sat cross-legged on a pile of cushions in the center of what had once been a ceremonial combat arena. Around them, a circle of Kreshari warriors sat in similar poses, looking for all the galaxy like oversized deadly kindergartners at story time. "And that's why cryptocurrency never really worked out," the human was saying. "Too much energy consumption for what was essentially a digital status symbol. Anyway, oh hey, Earth delegations here." They bounded up with casual energy that made several of the diplomats flinch. Old instincts died hard when dealing with a room full of apex predators. "Ambassador Loritz," the human greeted, extending a hand. "Thanks for coming all this way. I've been hoping to get some folks from back home out here. The Kreshari have so many questions about Earth culture." Behind the human, one massive warrior was examining what appeared to be a soccer ball with intense concentration. "We're honored by the invitation," Loritz managed, acutely aware that this human, barely out of university by the look of them, was now technically one of the most powerful figures in the quadrant. "The Terran Coalition has many questions about your position here, the human grinned. I bet. Come on, let's talk somewhere more comfortable. The warriors are about to start their cultural appreciation hour anyway. They leaned toward the ambassador in a conspiratorial whisper. We're working through Earth sports chronologically. Today is soccer. Last week was wrestling, which got a little intense. They led the Earth delegation to a side chamber, equipped with furniture that actually accommodated human proportions. Through a viewing window, they could see the Kreshari warriors now organizing themselves into teams, their massive, clawed feet delicately maneuvering the ball with surprising grace. So, the human said, dropping into a chair with casual disregard for diplomatic formality, I'm guessing the coalition sent you to figure out if I've gone rogue, if I'm being mind-controlled, or if this is all an elaborate prelude to a Kreshari invasion of Earth. Ambassador Loretz blinked. That's remarkably perceptive. Not really. It's what I'd wonder too. The human gestured to a platter of refreshments. Synthesized from Earth patterns, totally safe for human consumption. The Kreshari are really into hospitality now. Turns out most of their cultural aggression stemmed from never having guests who didn't run away screaming. Attaché Vreen couldn't contain herself any longer. What exactly is your endgame here? You've completely upended galactic power structures in less than a season. The human considered this while munching on what appeared to be a replicated cookie. No endgame, really. Just making it up as I go. The Kreshari have been isolated for millennia because everyone's terrified of them, which only reinforced their belief that dominance is the only path. Classic feedback loop. They shrugged. I'm just showing them alternatives. By teaching them soccer. Loretz couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. And cooking, and music, and the concept of trade that doesn't involve ritual threats. The human smiled. But mostly by treating them like people instead of monsters. A thunderous roar from the main chamber interrupted them, followed by what sounded suspiciously like cheering. Someone scored, the human explained. They're really getting into it. The Galactic Concord is in an uproar, Lawrence said, steering the conversation back to diplomacy. The Arcturus Collective has doubled their military budget. The Vosk are threatening preemptive strikes if the Kreshari make any unusual movements. For the first time, the human's casual demeanor slipped, revealing something harder underneath. Yeah, that's the real problem, isn't it? Everyone's so used to fearing the Kreshari that they can't handle it when they stop behaving like threats. Can you blame them? The Kreshari have been the bogeyman of galactic politics for centuries, which is exactly why change is so threatening. The human leaned forward. Ambassador, what if I told you the Kreshari have been just as afraid as everyone else? Their aggression was preemptive. Strike first so no one forms coalitions against you. They've been trapped in that mindset for generations. Before Loretz could respond, a Kreshari warrior entered, one of the highest-ranking generals, judging by his elaborate scarification. Alpha of Alphas, the Vosk delegation has arrived. They demand audience. The human sighed. Earlier than expected. Send them in, I guess. They turned back to the Earth delegation. Sorry to cut this short. The Vosk have been particularly resistant to our new approach. We'll observe, if permitted, Lawrence said quickly, unwilling to miss this diplomatic interaction. Sure, why not? More witnesses means fewer chances for misunderstandings. The Vosk ambassador entered, flanked by guards, his blade ridges fully extended in a display that among his kind signaled readiness for potential combat. His gaze swept dismissively over the Earth delegation before fixing on the human. So the rumors are true, he hissed. Earth sends representatives to curry favor with their new puppet master. The human rolled their eyes. Ambassador exulted, always a pleasure. We've talked about making accusations without evidence, remember. Not very productive for diplomatic relations. Spare me your pacification attempts, Zol snapped. The Vosk Imperium sees through this charade. You've somehow subjugated the Kreshari to use as a weapon against the rest of us, a human trick. Rather than taking offense, the human laughed. A human trick? Have you met humans? We can barely agree on planetary governance, let alone orchestrate galactic conspiracies. They gestured to the still visible Kreshari sporting event. Does that look like an invasion force to you? Zol's reptilian features contorted. A ploy to lower our defenses. The human sighed deeply, then did something unexpected. They turned to the Kreshari general and spoke in the predator species' own clicking language, a feat previously thought anatomically impossible for human vocal cords. The general responded with what sounded like reluctant agreement, then left the chamber. What was that? Demanded Zha. I've asked General Kavex to bring in the data we've been gathering. Since you won't take my word for it, perhaps statistics will convince you. Minutes later, the general returned with a holographic projector. With a gesture from the human, it activated, displaying trade routes, resource exchanges, and security incidents across Kreshari territory. These are the numbers from before and after my unexpected promotion, the human explained. Piracy down 60%, trade volume up 43%, extraction efficiency improved by 28% with new cooperative agreements. Zol studied the data, his natural skepticism warring with the evidence before him. And what do the Kreshari gain from this pacification? Community, the human said simply. Turns out being feared by everyone gets lonely after a few millennia. Ambassador Loritz watched this exchange with growing fascination. The human was either the galaxy's most skilled diplomat or dangerously naive. Possibly both. The sudden blare of an alarm cut through the tension. General Kavex burst back into the chamber, all pretense of ceremonial decorum gone. Alpha of Alphas, the Arcturus fleet has crossed the neutral boundary. They approach Kreshari colony worlds with weapons active. The human's expression shifted instantly from diplomatic to focused. Looks like some people prefer the old status quo, Ambassador Schold. They turned to the general. Battle stations but non-aggressive posture. No first strike. For a tense moment, it seemed the general might object to this restrained approach. Then, with a formal salute that involved pressing clawed fists to his armored chest, he complied. The human turned back to the stunned ambassadors. Gentlemen, it seems our discussion will have to continue another time. We have a potential war to prevent. You can't possibly think the Arcturus will back down, Sol said, his tone almost pitying. They've committed now. The human's smile returned, but different now, sharper, with something almost predatory lurking behind it. That's where you're wrong, Ambassador. Everyone thinks I've somehow tamed the Kreshari. The truth is much simpler. They gestured toward the window, where Kreshari warriors were now rapidly deploying to battle stations with practiced precision. I haven't made them less dangerous. I've just given them something besides hunting to focus on. The human stood, suddenly emanating an authority that belied their youthful appearance and casual demeanor. The Arcturus believe they're calling a bluff. They're about to discover there was never any bluff to call. The Kreshari are still the apex predators they've always been. The difference is now they have a leader who understands that the greatest demonstration of power is choosing when not to use it. As the ambassadors watched in stunned silence, the humans strode toward the command center, flanked by Kreshari warriors who moved with the synchronized grace of born killers. Oh, and gentlemen, the human paused at the doorway, glancing back. You might want to find secure positions. Things are about to get diplomatically interesting. The galaxy's balance of power hadn't just tilted, it had been completely upended by a human who taught apex predators to play soccer and practice restraint. As the warning klaxons blared, Ambassador Loritz couldn't decide which was more terrifying: the old Kreshari who knew only dominance, or the new ones who were learning strategy from a species that had evolved by outsmarting predators rather than becoming them. Behind him, through the viewing window, he noticed the soccer ball lying abandoned on the ceremonial field. One of the warriors had crushed it with a casual step on their way to battle stations. Old habits, it seemed, died hard, but they were dying nonetheless. The Kreshari battlecruiser Fang of Dominance cut through space like the apex predator it was named after, sleek, purposeful, and carrying enough firepower to reduce small moons to asteroid fields. On its command bridge stood the most unlikely crisis management team the galaxy had ever witnessed. "They've taken position around Outpost Krell 9, reported General Kavex, his claws tapping delicate commands into a console built for creatures with considerably less lethal appendages. Arcturus formation suggests standard encirclement tactics. The human nodded, studying the tactical display with unnervingly calm eyes. 3 days into what news networks were already calling the Predator Crisis, and they showed no signs of stress beyond an occasional yawn. Around them, Kreshari warriors manned stations with disciplined efficiency, while Ambassadors Loritz and Zoll observed from a hastily designated diplomatic corner. 12 Arcturus warships, the human mused. Outgunned 2-1, but we have superior maneuvering. Interesting choice for their first move. Ambassador Exol hissed softly. The Arcturus are not known for subtlety. This is merely the vanguard. Oh, I'm counting on that, the human replied with a smile that made even the Kreshari warriors glance at each other. General, open a direct channel to the Arcturus flagship. Moments later, the crystalline form of Supreme Commander Zenith appeared on the main view screen, facets glittering with barely contained hostility. Kreshari vessel, the translation came through, you have violated... Auxiliary? Yeah, we've violated some ancient border treaty that everyone's been selectively enforcing for centuries, the human interrupted, stepping forward. Let's skip the pretense, Commander. You're here because the Arcturus Collective is terrified that the balance of power is shifting. The crystalline commander vibrated with indignation. We do not fear. Of course you do, the human cut in again. Everyone's afraid. The Kreshari are acting unpredictably, trading instead of raiding, negotiating instead of threatening. It's far more terrifying than when they were just being predictable predators. Commander Zenith's crystalline structure shifted to a more aggressive configuration. We will not allow a human to control the most dangerous military force in the quadrant. The human laughed, a sound so unexpected it momentarily confused even the translation systems. Control? Is that what you think this is? They turned to General Kivax. General, if I ordered you to surrender this vessel to the Arcturus, what would happen? The massive Kreshari warrior bared triple rows of teeth in what might have been amusement. We would respectfully decline and select a new alpha of alphas, presumably after removing the current one for showing weakness. See? The human turned back to the screen. I don't control anything, I lead. There's a difference. One the Arcturus might benefit from understanding. Commander Zenith's facets darkened. Enough games. Withdraw from this sector or face the consequences. Counter proposal, the human said, leaning forward. You power down weapons, we'll power down weapons. And we'll discuss this like civilized beings over a nice meal. The Kreshari chef has been working on interspecies cuisine. The crystalline nutrient suspension is apparently quite good. The Arcturus commander's response was to terminate the communication. Well, that went about as expected, the human sighed. They'll fire warning shots in approximately 30 seconds, followed by targeted strikes at our propulsion systems. General Kavex tilted his massive head. You sound certain of this tactical assessment. The Arcturus have used the same battle protocol since the third expansion. They're nothing if not consistent. The human stretched casually, which incidentally is why they're about to have a very bad day. Execute Operation Unexpected. Throughout the bridge, Kreshari warriors tapped commands with surgical precision. The massive battle cruiser seemed to shudder, then, impossibly, vanished from the Arcturus targeting systems. "What just happened?" Ambassador Loritz whispered to his Vosk counterpart. Xol's reptilian features registered rare surprise. They appear to have activated some form of cloaking technology. But the Kreshari have always considered stealth dishonorable in battle. On the main view screen, the Arcturus fleet's formation suddenly dissolved into chaos as they frantically searched for their vanished target. "Fun fact about the Kreshari," the human commented, watching with apparent satisfaction. "They've actually invented plenty of dishonorable technology over the centuries. They just never used it because their cultural code considered it beneath them." They grinned. "Turns out when you frame it as advanced hunting techniques rather than stealth, it becomes completely acceptable." Ambassador Loritz stared. "You've been weaponizing cultural relativism. I prefer to call it finding common ground, but sure." The ship rematerialized, directly behind the Arcturus flagship, weapons primed but not firing. "Open channel again," the human ordered. When Commander Zenith's now agitated form appeared, they continued conversationally. "So, about that dinner invitation. Still stands. Or we can continue this demonstration of why challenging the apex predators of the galaxy to a fight might have been hasty." For several tense moments, the crystalline commander vibrated in frequencies that the translation system identified as extreme agitation and calculating reassessment. "We will discuss terms," Zenith finally responded. "Excellent. We'll send coordinates for neutral territory. Bring your diplomatic team. We'll bring the snacks." As the communication ended, General Kevex turned to the human. "A curious strategy, Alpha of Alphas. We could have eliminated their flagship immediately. And then what? Fight 11 more ships? And after that, the entire Arcturus collective? After them, whoever else decides we're too dangerous to exist?" The human shook their head. "Victory isn't defeating an enemy, General. It's turning them into someone who no longer wants to be your enemy." Ambassador Joel approached, blade ridges now retracted in the Vosk gesture of non-aggression. "A most unconventional philosophy of warfare." "Not warfare," the human corrected. "Evolution. The universe doesn't reward the strongest or most aggressive species in the long run. It rewards the most adaptable." They gestured toward the tactical display, showing the now retreating Arcturus fleet. Today, the Kreshari demonstrated adaptation. Tomorrow, maybe the Arcturus will too. As the diplomats digested this, an alert chimed from a nearby console. A Kreshari communications officer reported, "Alpha of Alphas, we're receiving transmissions from 17 different worlds requesting immediate diplomatic contacts." The human's expression shifted to one of genuine delight. "See? Nothing motivates diplomatic interest like watching the most feared predators in the galaxy demonstrate restraint when they had every justification for violence." General Kervex made a sound that the translation system struggled with before rendering as philosophical amusement. "The pack leader teaches strange hunting techniques," the massive warrior observed. "We stalk not bodies but alliances. We pursue not blood but advantage." "Exactly," the human agreed. "And the galaxy is finally noticing that predators who choose when not to strike are infinitely more terrifying than those who always attack." Ambassador Loritz found his voice at last. "You planned this confrontation." The human's smile was neither confirmation nor denial, but their eyes held a glint that even the Kreshari warriors seemed to recognize with newfound respect. "Let's just say I understand what makes both predators and prey tick," they replied. "And right now, everyone in the galaxy is feeling very, very much like prey." Retraud can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. 6 months after the Arcturus incident, the Grand Hall of Reconciliation hosted representatives from 27 species, an unprecedented gathering. At its center stood the human, now draped in a modified Kreshari ceremonial mantle that no longer looked comically oversized. "The Galactic Concord is now open for signatories," they announced, gesturing to the holographic document hovering above the central podium. "Equal protection, equal trade rights, mutual defense." General Kovex, now bearing the title First Diplomat, stepped forward alongside Commander Zenith of the Arcturus and Ambassador Chol of the Vosk, former adversaries united in purpose. "The strong need not prey upon others to demonstrate strength," Kovex declared, his once threatening presence now commanding a different kind of respect. As dignitaries lined up to add their signatures, Ambassador Loritz approached the human. "You've completely rewritten galactic politics in half a standard year," he observed, "transformed the most feared predators into peacekeepers." The human smile held that now familiar predatory edge. "I just showed them a more efficient way to hunt. Why chase when you can make others come to you willingly?" "And that's what terrifies everyone," Lawrence realized. "Not that you tamed the apex predators, but that I taught them subtlety," the human finished. "Evolution is fascinating, isn't it? Sometimes the most dangerous adaptation isn't sharper claws, it's knowing when to keep them sheathed." Behind them, the galaxy's most powerful species continued signing away centuries of conflict, united by the most unexpected predator of all,